didn't plan to open this one with a headline moment. There was no courtroom, no shouting, no envelope sliding across a table. What stood out instead was the silence, the kind that stretches over weeks, then months, until it starts to feel deliberate. Eliza Monroe's story doesn't begin with what was taken from her, but with what never arrived. This is where she begins. I was folding sheets in the laundry room of the hotel when my phone buzzed. The machine was loud, the air smelled like detergent and heat, and I almost didn't hear it. I wiped my hands on my pants and checked the screen. Unknown number. I stepped into the hallway and answered. Hello? There was a pause, not a dropped call. A pause. I could hear breathing on the other end. This is Karen from Miller and Rowe Accounting. A woman finally said. Her voice sounded careful, like she was choosing each word. I just wanted to let you know we've decided to move in a different direction. I leaned against the wall. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Another pause. Longer this time. You interviewed very well. She added. Your credentials are strong. I understand. She hesitated again. I'm sorry. The line went dead. I stayed there for a second, staring at my phone. Then I went back into the laundry room and finished folding the sheets. White, fitted, flat, over and over. I didn't cry. I hadn't cried in a while. That was the 15th call like that. Or maybe the 16th. I'd stopped counting because the pattern was always the same. Good interview, warm smiles, promises to follow up, then nothing. Or a call like this, delivered like a favor. Linda, my manager, poked her head in. Breaks over in 5. I know. She watched me for a second. You okay? I'm fine. She didn't argue. Linda never did. Later that night, when my shift ended and the lobby was quiet, I checked my email one more time. Nothing new. I powered off my phone and walked out to the parking lot. My car sat under a flickering light. It had been my grandmother's. The radio only worked if you pressed the knob just right. I drove home and found a message on my answering machine. My mother's voice. Eliza. It's Mom. Your father heard you've been applying around town. He's worried. Call us. Worried. That was the word she always used. I didn't call back that night. I made pasta. I ate standing at the counter. I opened my laptop and stared at my resume, at the line that said summa cum laude, as if it might explain itself if I looked long enough. The next morning, I got dressed and went to see my father. He was in his office, papers lined up neatly, coffee untouched. He didn't look surprised to see me. Sit, he said, nodding to the chair across from him. I sat. He folded his hands. People talk. About what? About concerns. What concerns? He met my eyes, calm as ever. About your judgment. About trust. I felt something tighten in my chest. Who did you talk to? He didn't answer that. He never did. I was trying to protect you, he said instead. You need to learn how this world works. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady, but my voice didn't. You're the reason no one will hire me. He looked at me for a long moment, then shrugged. If that's true, then maybe you should come home. That was the moment the silence finally made sense. We're going to stay with her here. If this story is reaching you, you already know why. I walked out of his office and didn't look back. At least, not then. I didn't leave town after that conversation. Not right away. I went back to my apartment, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the floor with my back against the couch. The place was quiet except for the refrigerator clicking on and off. I waited for the shaking in my hands to stop. It didn't. My phone lit up a little after noon. My mother this time. I let it ring until it stopped, then picked it up on the second try. Hi, sweetheart. Her voice came out careful, already braced. Your father told me you stopped by. I did. She exhaled. He's worried about you. That's the word you keep using. Well, it's true. I leaned my head against the cabinet. He's calling people. Mom. A pause. Papers shifting on her end. He's just clarifying things. Clarifying what that you're still figuring yourself out? I laughed once. It slipped out before I could stop it. I'm not figuring myself out. I finished at the top of my class. I know. She lowered her voice. And we're proud of you. Proud. Another word that floated without weight. He thinks you'd be safer at home. She continued. You could help him with the books, learn the business. It wouldn't be forever. I wouldn't be paid. That's not the point. I stood up and started pacing. The carpet was thin in spots. So, what is the point? She didn't answer right away. When she did, it sounded rehearsed. Families take care of each other. I stopped walking. By ruining each other, Eliza. Tell him to stop. A longer silence. I could picture her sitting at the kitchen table, one hand over the receiver, the other folded in her lap. The way she always did when she didn't want to argue. He won't. She finally said, Not if you keep pushing. Then I'll leave town. That won't help. It might. She sighed. You don't understand how much influence your father has. I'm starting to. That night, Linda pulled me aside before my shift. She handed me a schedule with my name circled in pen. I added hours. She said, You didn't ask. But I figured. Thank you. She studied my face. Someone make a call on you. I hesitated, then nodded. She shook her head once. Happens more than you'd think. I swallowed. What do people usually do? They leave, Linda said, or they wait it out. And if they wait, she gave a small, tired smile. They usually come back crawling. I went into the supply closet and closed the door behind me. The shelves smelled like bleach and paper towels. I stood there longer than I needed to. I wasn't going to crawl back, but I didn't know yet how to stand somewhere else. The letter came 3 days later. Plain envelope. My name printed, not handwritten. I recognized the return address before I opened it. The bank. I stood in the hallway outside my apartment, keys still in my hand, and read it twice. Then a third time, slower. They were notifying me that the account tied to my student loans had been flagged for review. Nothing dramatic yet. Just language about cooperation, verification, next steps. I went inside and sat at the kitchen table. The chair wobbled the way it always did. I steadied it with my foot and read the letter again. My phone buzzed. My father. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, another call, then a text. We need to talk. I didn't answer until that evening. I was tired, and that made me less careful. You contacted the bank, I said as soon as he picked up. His voice stayed even. I clarified my position. You're not on the loan. I co-signed. He replied. That makes it my concern. You said you did that to help me. I did. Then, why are they reviewing it? A pause. I could hear him shifting papers on his desk. Because you're unstable right now. My chest tightened. Unstable how you're emotional. You're making impulsive decisions. Applying for jobs is impulsive. Refusing support is. I pressed my fingers into the table. You're hurting my credit. You're hurting yourself. That was always how he framed it. Like gravity. Like something inevitable. The next morning, my landlord called. His tone was apologetic before he even explained. There's been a change, he said. We're going to need to revisit the lease. Revisit how I was told there may be financial complications. Told by who? Another pause. I'd rather not say. I closed my eyes. I already paid the deposit. I understand. And it will be returned. I'm sorry. The call ended. I sat there staring at the wall, listening to the hum of traffic outside. Someone upstairs laughed. Someone else slammed a door. Life continuing. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house, not to argue, to look. My mother was in the kitchen, sorting mail. She froze when she saw me. Eliza, I need to see something. She frowned. "See what any paperwork with my name on it." Her hands tightened around a stack of envelopes. "Why, please?" She hesitated, then pulled a thin folder from a drawer. She set it on the counter but didn't open it. "There's nothing bad here," she said quickly. "It was just for records." I flipped it open. My name, my signature, copied from somewhere else. And hers. A statement dated years ago. Language about concerns, about oversight, about financial judgment. I looked up at her. She didn't meet my eyes. "Your father asked me to sign. You didn't think to tell me I didn't think it would matter." I laughed softly. It surprised both of us. "It mattered," I said. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. "I'm not here to fight," I told her. "I just needed to know." She nodded, tears already forming. "He's trying to protect you." I closed the folder and slid it back across the counter. "He's trying to keep me." That night, I called the bank back, asked questions, took notes, wrote everything down. If this was going to be done on paper, I was done pretending I didn't know how to read it. I didn't hear my brother's name from him. Not at first. It came from a woman I barely knew. We'd sat next to each other during one of those panel lunches the hotel hosted for local businesses. I'd been refilling water pitchers. She stopped me near the service station. "You're Eliza Monroe, right?" I nodded. She lowered her voice. Not dramatic, just cautious. "I used to work in recruiting, regional firms, accounting, finance, that kind of thing. Used to, I retired last year." She paused. "Your name came up once." I felt my shoulders tense. Came up how she glanced toward the dining room, then back at me. "Your resume was strong. Too strong to stall like it did." I waited. She continued. "Someone made a call. Not formal. More like a check-in." "Who?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "He didn't introduce himself as family, but he mentioned your father. Said he was speaking on his behalf." My mouth went dry. "That wasn't my father." "No," she agreed. "It wasn't." I thanked her and went back to work. My hands shook while I wiped down counters. Not enough to drop anything. Enough that I noticed. That evening, I drove past my brother's house without stopping. His porch light was on, his car in the driveway. Everything exactly where it should be. I called him from my apartment. "Eliza," he said. Easy, almost cheerful. "What's up? Have you been calling people about me?" A short laugh. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." He sighed. "I've had conversations. With recruiters, with contacts. About me." He didn't deny it. "Dad asked me to keep an eye out. An eye out for what? For damage control." I leaned against the wall. "You told them I couldn't be trusted." "I told them there were family concerns." "That's the same thing. You're being dramatic." That word again. "Passed down like an heirloom." "I needed you to stay quiet," he added, "just for a while, so I'd come home, so things wouldn't get messy." I closed my eyes. "You didn't think this would come back to you." He hesitated. "Just a beat." "That's not fair." "It's accurate." He exhaled. "You don't understand how this works." "I understand enough." The call ended without goodbye. I sat on the floor and stared at my phone. There was no email, no message to save, no proof to hold up, just voices traveling through rooms I wasn't in. And the knowledge that my brother hadn't needed to hate me to help ruin me. He just needed to make the right call at the right time. My grandmother never raised her voice. Not once. She didn't need to. When she wanted your attention, she just waited until you realized you'd already given it to her. I thought about that the week after I stopped answering my brother's calls. I took a day off from the hotel and drove to her old house. It had been sold, emptied, turned into something beige and staged, but the mailbox was still crooked. I parked across the street and sat there longer than I meant to. When I was a kid, she used to make me tea at the kitchen table. No sugar, a little milk. She'd slide a yellow notepad toward me and a pen. Read this, she'd say, tapping a page of numbers. Tell me what you see. I see expenses. I'd tell her. And income. And what else? I'd squint. Something's off. She'd smile. Good. Trust that feeling. Back then, I thought she was teaching me math. I didn't realize she was teaching me to notice pressure. Where it shows up. How it hides. The last summer before she died, I stayed with her for a few weeks. My parents said it would be good for both of us. She didn't argue. She never did. One afternoon, she was sorting papers at the dining table, not frantic, organized, stacks labeled in her handwriting. What are those? I asked. Old business, she replied. Things that still matter, like what she looked at me over her glasses, like making sure no one else gets to decide your life for you. I laughed, uncomfortable. You're dramatic. She shook her head. Your father calls it discipline. That's not the same thing. I didn't say anything. I'd learned early that defending him only made her quieter. She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Her skin was cool. Steady. Listen to me, she said. If you ever feel trapped, it won't be because you're weak. It'll be because someone built the walls carefully. I swallowed. What am I supposed to do about that? Learn how structures work, she said, and then build your own. I remembered that line now, sitting in my car with the engine off. At the time, I'd nodded like I understood. I didn't. Not really. After her funeral, I'd asked my mother if there was anything I needed to handle. Paperwork, accounts, something. No, she'd said quickly. It was all taken care of. She left small gifts. Nothing complicated. I'd believed her. I wanted to. That afternoon, across from the empty house, my phone buzzed. An email notification. Unknown sender. The subject line was simple. Personal disclosure meeting. I didn't open it right away. I stared at the screen, my heart beating harder than it should have. My grandmother had never promised me rescue. She promised preparation. I started the car and pulled away from the curb. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was reacting. I felt like something had been waiting, quietly, patiently, the way she always did. I opened the email that night, sitting on the edge of my bed with the lamp off. The screen lit the room just enough to read. Hale Pierce Advisory would like to schedule a personal disclosure meeting. No greeting, no explanation. Just a phone number and a suggested date. Chicago. 2 weeks out. I read it again in the morning, this time over coffee. The kind that tastes burnt no matter how much cream you add. I forwarded it to myself, then closed my laptop and went to work. Linda noticed immediately. You look like someone gave you good news and bad news at the same time. I think I'm going out of town, I said. Her eyebrows lifted. For fun, for something. She nodded once. Take the days you need. At lunch, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. I did anyway. You've been quiet, she said. I've been busy, with what I watched a crumb move across the table when the air kicked on. I have a meeting in Chicago. There was a pause. With who I don't know yet. That's not smart. I'm not asking permission. Her voice softened. Your father should know. He already knows enough. Silence. Then, carefully. This doesn't have anything to do with your grandmother. Does it? I felt my stomach tighten. Why would it? She wouldn't leave unfinished business. I guess I'll find out. The line went quiet. She didn't push. That was new. 2 days later, a man from Hale Pierce called. His voice was calm, unhurried. This meeting isn't an interview. He said, it's procedural. Procedural. How there's a condition attached to a trust. You've met it. I don't have a trust. You do. I stood up and paced my apartment. No one's contacted me before. That was intentional, he replied. The trigger was age or professional action. You've crossed both thresholds. I stopped walking. So you've been waiting. Yes. For what? For you to choose. The word sat there between us. Not dramatic, just factual. When I come to Chicago, I said, what happens? You'll be given documents. You'll be asked to listen. You won't be asked to decide anything that day. And my family beat. They aren't part of this. After the call, I sat on the floor and stared at the wall. The paint near the baseboard was chipped. I'd meant to fix it. I booked a bus ticket that afternoon. I didn't tell my father. I didn't tell my brother. I packed a small bag and set it by the door. For the first time since all of this started, nothing was being taken from me. Something was being opened. The office didn't look like I expected. No marble floors, no glass walls, just a long table, a few chairs, and a window that faced an alley. Someone had set out water in plain glasses. No logos. Anthony Pierce came in a few minutes after I sat down. Mid-50s, gray at the temples. Jacket off. Sleeves rolled like he'd been working. Thank you for coming, he said, taking the chair across from me. I know Chicago isn't close. I took the bus. He nodded, like that explained something. Let's get started. He slid a folder toward me. Thick. Tabs on the side. My name printed on the cover. This is not an inheritance meeting, he said. It's a disclosure. I opened the folder. The first page had my grandmother's name at the top. Marjorie Hale. Below it, legal language I recognized. Irrevocable trust. Beneficial interest. Anthony watched my face, not the papers. You own a portion of a private infrastructure investment fund, he said. 6%. I looked up. That's not possible. It is. How much is the fund worth? Approximately $460 million. I felt the room tilt. Not physically, just inside my chest. So my share is approximately $28 million, he said calmly, illiquid. I stared at the page. My grandmother's signature. Dated years ago. I can't touch it. I said, you cannot withdraw cash at will. He replied, you receive limited distributions. You can use the interest as collateral with approval. The power here is structural. I swallowed. My family doesn't know. No, he agreed. They were never meant to. I flipped to the next section. Governance rights. Observer status. This says board observer. That's correct. I don't vote. You listen. You attend. You see how decisions are made. I leaned back. And the job. He smiled slightly. Junior analyst. Entry level. You earn that seat like anyone else. Relief came before pride. Thank you. There's one more thing, he said, tapping the folder. Your father contacted us. My shoulders stiffened. He raised concerns about your character. Anthony continued. He used language consistent with slander and tortious interference. I didn't respond. We documented the call, he added. We took no action beyond recording it. The silence stretched. Anthony didn't rush it. He doesn't know. I said finally. About any of this. No, he said, and that matters. I closed the folder. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Anthony stood. Take your time. Nothing changes today unless you want it to. I gathered my things and walked to the window. Somewhere below, a truck backed up, the beep muffled by glass. My grandmother planned this, I said. She did. He agreed. She believed preparation was a form of care. I turned back to him. What happens next? He met my eyes. You decide how visible you want to be. I left the building with the folder under my arm. The city moved around me like it always had. People walking, traffic, noise. Nothing looked different, but I knew something now. My father needed capital to grow, and part of that capital answered to me. The gala was quieter than I expected, not silent, just controlled. Low music, soft laughter, glasses touching without clinking too hard. Everyone seemed practiced at standing close without leaning in. I stayed near the edge of the room, a neutral dress. Nothing that asked to be noticed. Anthony moved through the crowd with the ease of someone who didn't need to hurry. When he reached me, he didn't stop. "Stay here," he said under his breath. "I'll come back." My father arrived late. I noticed him the way you notice a familiar sound before you turn your head. His posture was the same, confident, slightly impatient. He scanned the room like he owned part of it. When he saw me, his expression tightened. He walked over slowly, stopping a step too close. "This is a mistake," he said. His voice stayed low, polite. "You don't belong here. I was invited. By who? You already know." His jaw worked. "You're playing a dangerous game. I didn't start it." He leaned in. "You don't understand what you're interfering with." I met his eyes. "I understand exactly what you're protecting." Anthony appeared beside us, not rushed, not stiff. "Franklin," he said, "good to see you." My father straightened. "Anthony, I was hoping we could talk." "We can." Anthony replied. "Just not here." A woman in a black suit stepped up, then another. Security, but not obvious. No hands on shoulders, no raised voices. "This way," Anthony said, gesturing toward a door near the back. My father looked at me. For a moment, something flickered. Calculation, anger, maybe fear. "This isn't over," he said. Anthony held the door open. "We're just getting started." They disappeared into the room next door. The door closed softly. No slam. No scene. I stood where I was. Someone offered me a drink. I shook my head. From across the room, conversations continued. No one stared. No one whispered. Whatever was happening behind that door belonged there. A few minutes later, Anthony returned alone. He adjusted his cuff, then looked at me. "It's done for tonight," he said. "What did he say?" "Very little." I nodded. He was presented with documentation. Anthony continued. "Slander, tortious interference, ethics violations, everything recorded." I felt a weight shift. Not lift. Shift. "He'll leave quietly," Anthony said. "That's usually how it happens." My father walked out moments later. His face was composed, almost calm. He didn't look at me. I watched him go. Not with relief, not with satisfaction, just with clarity. The room next door stayed closed. The music swelled slightly. Someone laughed too loud. Nothing had exploded, and yet, everything had changed. I moved into a small apartment a few weeks later. 3rd floor, no elevator. The stairs creaked in a way that made me slow down without thinking about it. I bought a used desk, a lamp that leaned a little to the left, and a mug that chipped the first time I washed it. It felt like mine anyway. Work settled into a rhythm. Mornings reviewing spreadsheets, afternoons listening more than talking. No one treated me carefully. That mattered. When Anthony passed my desk, he nodded once and kept walking. That mattered too. My father didn't call again. Neither did my brother. My mother left one message. Short. Careful. I saved it. Then turned my phone off for the night. Some evenings, I took the bus home and watched the city slide past the window. Brick buildings, laundry hanging from balconies, people arguing softly on corners, then laughing like nothing happened. Ordinary lives, continuing. I thought about my grandmother more in those moments. Not the version people talked about. The one who waited, who planned without needing applause, who understood that control didn't always look like force. One night, I caught myself smiling while balancing my checkbook. The realization came quietly, almost embarrassed to be noticed. Eliza Monroe no longer felt like a name I had to defend. I went to bed early. I woke up calm. If you've stayed with this story until now, thank you for sitting in the quiet part. Some endings don't arrive with noise. They arrive with space. And sometimes, that's where things finally begin.